A spark ignited in the air, a pulse of energy that no one could ignore. And something changed the instant your picture appeared on the screen. It was more than a post or a brief moment in an infinite scroll. Something different, something with an unsaid power behind it. Because this was about more than simply an image. It was about presence, impact, and the way certain things demand to be seen without ever asking. People stopped, their eyes expanded, and their conversations were interrupted. And the reality? Before they could even comprehend it, they sensed it. An almost imperceptible pause at first, followed by a wave that traveled from one to the next. The mood changed as the reality set in. With their breath locked in their throat, someone leans close. Another tilts their head, attempting to describe the sensation that curls within their chest. Then, at last, someone has the courage to state what everyone is thinking. This is different. Because it goes beyond lighting and angles. It's not about the surface level or the technical. It has to do with how you take up space, how your presence never goes away, and how a single look from you is more powerful than a whole discourse. Despite their incomplete understanding, they noticed. Even if they are unsure of why, they are unable to turn away from you because you were felt, not just seen. I knew you before I formed you in the belly, and I sanctified you before you came out of the womb. Jeremiah 1:5. The air itself appears to change when some individuals enter a room. What matters is who they are, not what they say or do. The weight of something invisible, something positioned within them long before they ever entered the situation, is something you can sense before you really comprehend it. Whatever it is, it cannot be taught, borrowed, or faked. It might be called destiny, purpose, or an anointing. It comes naturally, and no introduction is necessary when it occurs. When someone has that presence, before they can describe it, people can recognize it. Curiosity at first, followed by silence, a pause. Then a barely noticeable change in the air. Everyone senses that something is unusual, even if they don't express it directly. He doesn't ask to be noticed. Although he doesn't seek attention, the room somehow adjusts to him, bending around him. There is a calm conviction and a stillness that speak louder than words, without any forced bravado or overstated confidence. There are those persons who must express themselves. Others just are. Eyes narrowing, someone leans closer to examine him. They whisper, "It's the way he moves." As if he already knows what's coming. His stance is neither hesitant nor rigid. It's the position of someone who has already recognized and accepted the route ahead, not someone who is attempting to prove anything. Another speaker adds, "Look at his eyes." And all of a sudden they realize that he is staring through the camera, as if he sees something that no one else does, something that is just beyond the frame. No one can ignore it, since this isn't about a snapshot, even if it disturbs some people and encourages others. Lighting and angles are irrelevant. It has to do with something more profound, something that is ingrained in his fundamental being. Some individuals are formed by their environment and the things that happen to them throughout life. The world is shaped by others just by their presence. That's what it is. At last, someone takes a breath, the realization sinking in. He isn't holding out for selection. Whether they like it or not, they are unable to turn away from him because he already knows he is. The scene's almost planned arrangement, the type of picture that sticks in your mind, is another factor. The type that transforms a moment into something more than simply a photograph. It is said that the background frames him too well for it to be a coincidence. Shadows seem to define his shape rather than absorb it. Above, the light flickers, regular and purposeful, like a pulse. Zooming in, someone observes how each component seems to be a part of a bigger image, as if the cosmos had already drawn it out before the shutter was ever pressed. One half of his face is submerged in shade, while the other side is touched by a light that is too faint to be incidental due to the uneven illumination. The murmurs start at this point. Is he a bridge connecting two opposed forces, trapped in the middle? Is this a turning point, a threshold moment only a few seconds before entering an irrevocable phase? They examine more than simply the environment. It's the stance, the silence, the way each element seems to be perched on the brink of something enormous. May God's peace surround you, my dear siblings. I'm here today to remind you of a very important fact. God's divine plan, which is unaffected by the fleeting worries of the world, is the foundation of our existence. Whatever is done in faith will return to God in abundant blessing, according to the Bible, Luke chapter 6:38. No matter how much the world tries to ignore them, there are certain individuals you simply can't ignore. Regardless of how many voices attempt to minimize their impact, they are unassailable. They stand out from the throng. They don't become smaller to appease others. Long before they ever entered the present, something was put inside of them, giving them weight and purpose. And the world takes attention when someone like that moves. They first believed it to be simply another picture, another frame in the never-ending stream of information. Now, however, the emphasis is different. This goes beyond what has been recorded. It concerns what it validates. Since this has nothing to do with composition, lighting, or angles, it has to do with presence. It concerns his impact on the audience as well as the area around him. Some people don't comprehend it. Some people don't even like it. They can't ignore it, however. What's unusual about this? The question is practically an afterthought, yet the person asking already knows the answer. The majority of individuals go through life undetected, providing just the smallest indication of their presence. But him, he makes a change. The cadence of the moment is changed by his presence, pressing on the atmosphere. It's in the way he moves, just being himself, without clamoring for approval or attention. Some find themselves pulled to it, ensnared in the might of an inexplicable force. Others oppose it, feeling uneasy at the existence of someone who doesn't want to be little. No one is indifferent, regardless of whether they like it or dislike it. Additionally, the uneasiness grows as the picture spreads. What disturbs them is not what they see. It's what they are unable to, because they all know in their hearts that it's the weight of something bigger. The assurance of a person who moves as if he already knows where he's headed, and the knowledge that maybe, just perhaps, this was never another moment. Perhaps it was always supposed to draw attention. According to 1 Corinthians 13:12, for now we see through a glass, darkly, but then face to face. There are things that are not visible to the naked eye, but are visible to the spirit. Like a thunderclap splintering the sky, certain moments are loud, unavoidable, and demanding attention. Others, though, some are more subdued. Even if they don't make an announcement, they won't be disregarded. What if the power is in withholding rather than revealing? What if something's actual weight is in its absence rather than in its presence? Take a look at this picture and you'll see. Or maybe you won't. Not immediately. Because this isn't just a photo. It's a threshold, a partially open door, an unanswered question. It retains your attention even if it doesn't ask for it. Furthermore, the weight of such stillness and quiet is greater than that of words. Something seems to be hovering just out of grasp, invisible but urgent. No one else can sense the whisper on a breeze. The voids between are where they first see it. A void that isn't really empty. The way the light won't come on completely. The way the shadows extend, rather than just fall, as if they are aware of something that the outside world is unaware of. Someone leans forward, attempting to identify the sensation that stirs in their chest and grasp it. Another cocks their head, observing the frame's margins, while cursing as they seem to move. Just enough to make people question if what they're seeing is all there is, without being overt or aggressive. Then, In a quiet but definite voice, someone says, "It's the darkness." All around him, encircling him like a mantle, not just behind him. The words hang thick in the air, as if something invisible is standing just beyond the light. They all experience it now, even if they don't express it aloud. The feeling of standing on the brink of something enormous and unnamed. Perhaps this picture represents a riddle that has to be answered. It could also be a warning. Perhaps it's a message for the visually impaired. What if the picture purposefully chooses not to depict the true truth, instead of revealing it? What if what's lacking, rather than what is there, is what makes it so powerful? And what if there's more to that absence than meets the eye? The lingering inquiry transforms curiosity into something more profound and restless. Because this isn't simply about one moment that was documented anymore. It's about what before and what follows. The timing was not coincidental. That much is obvious. This may have come to light at any time, but it didn't. Everything changes when one realizes that the exactness of its arrival points to purpose. There is silence in the room. With a voice just above a whisper, someone looks at the timestamp and says, "It's never accidental." The conversations break down quickly, with certainty mixed with conjecture. Some claim it's a signal, a cipher that only those who can read between the lines can decipher. Each time, one of them murmurs, "Watch what happens." It's similar to a tide shifting direction. Some people nod, thinking about it. This goes beyond a simple update, not another ephemeral bit of information. What if it's a response to an unconscious query that nobody knew had been posed before? Then it dawned on me that this isn't simply another moment in time. It is a pivotal moment, a pulse that spreads and weaves itself into the greater discourse. The effect extends beyond this particular frame. It is an echo that reverberates outside of it. Reactions are changing according to perspectives. Someone says, "He doesn't chase attention." The most disturbing aspect of all is that he controls when the world pays attention. Because the air changed the instant this vision appeared. Unmistakable, yet subtle. Some people write it off as a coincidence. Some break down all meanings. However, nobody is uninterested. The picture changes, is copied, and is reconfigured in a matter of minutes. Some turned into overly dramatic things. Others reduced themselves to their most basic form. It simultaneously transforms into sarcasm, veneration, and critique. The impact is the same, but the distinction between awe and derision becomes hazy. Laughter is powerful too. Even comedy has the power to affect others. Someone smirks as they scroll past yet another edit, saying, "He'd probably find this funny." Or maybe that's just the purpose, and that is the issue that no one can really answer. Was this moment always his, or was it always in their hands? John 15. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not comprehend it. Some things are inexplicable. They defy categorization, dissection, and logical restriction. They keep attention with ease and don't ask for it. They are heard even when they don't yell. Those with the ability to sight, see. They first attempted to examine it. They looked at the composition, the light-shadow balance, and the angles. They were looking for a technological solution. Anything that would explain why this picture would not go away. But then the conversation changed. What was seen no longer mattered. It has to do with the senses. Something else, something spoken but not denied, was present. Long after the screen had gone dark, the impression persisted. The floodgates were released when someone finally set out. "I don't know why, but I can't stop looking at it." As it wasn't just them. None of them could define it, but they all felt it. Some saw the response as a spark, the igniting of a long suppressed and profound thing. It was more than a picture. It was difficult. They were called higher by an inaudible but unquestionable force, that challenged them to move with the same weight and stand with the same assurance. Something about it was strong, something that caused them to straighten their shoulders and reconsider their posture. However, it was not the case for everyone. Others experienced uneasiness, a peculiar uneasiness they were unable to identify. It was the subject's demeanor, mindful, not arrogant, as if he already knew something they didn't, as though he was seeing something just beyond the frame. As if to dispel a notion they hadn't accepted, one of them raised their voice and rubbed their temple, murmuring, "It makes me uneasy." "It's the way he looks at the camera," said another, in a softer tone. "Not at it, please. Through it." The room became silent, as it became apparent that the discussion had changed. Some were captivated. Some wanted to turn their heads away. The most disturbing thing, however, was that no one, was worried. Because what they were witnessing wasn't the only thing at stake. It has to do with seeing them. Because we fight not against people, but against principalities, powers, and the authorities of this world's darkness, according to Ephesians 6:12. Certain things aren't intended to be comprehended right away. Like a seed, certain things take root in the mind and wait to develop until their full significance becomes apparent. There are few but distinct times in life when you feel something before you can articulate it. A change in the atmosphere, an enduring presence, an epiphany that grazes the verge of consciousness but declines to fully manifest. This is exactly what it is. To them, it was simply another picture, something to look at and then go on from. Then the sensation struck, the hesitancy before turning away, the want to go back and gaze a little longer. Some pictures fade, but this one won't go away. It becomes ingrained in their thoughts as a question rather than a memory, one that is unsaid, unanswered, and becoming louder by the moment. Someone murmurs, just over the hum of discussion, "I can't stop thinking about it." There are more besides these. The way he stands, the way he looks, the way the world itself appears to bend around him, as if it were anticipating him. It goes beyond just composition, not just illumination, beyond just posture. It's there. At that point, people stop asking, "What is this?" And the focus shifts from curiosity to something more profound. You begin to question, why? Theories start to emerge and spread like wildfire. Some people aim for the rational and the explicable. Some are bold enough to go beyond. What if this goes beyond a simple post? Said slightly above a breath. The inquiry lingers in the air. A pause. Nobody chuckles. Nobody completely rejects it. Because despite how crazy it may seem, there is an element that cannot be avoided. The energy, the timing, and the inevitable nature that permeates every pixel. What if they are only seeing the surface of a much larger thing? Someone swiftly exhales while looking at the screen, as though they're waiting for a response. "It seems too accurate," they mutter. Another nods their head, but not in agreement, saying, "Too placed." That's when it hits you. It's a move, a piece being set on the board. Slow, crawling, and unquestionable. This is more than simply a picture. There is more to this than simply another moment in the never-ending scroll of fleeting stuff. This is a conscious action, something that has to be acknowledged. What comes next is the only question that remains, whether it was put here for a purpose. Habakkuk 2:2 states, "Write the vision, and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it." No mishaps occur. Coincidences don't exist. Only a design exists, one that develops, one that becomes apparent over time, moment by moment, piece by piece. And you understand it was always supposed to be this way when you eventually take a step back and see it for what it is. They first believed it to be only a picture, a single instant captured in time, a snapshot devoid of any deeper significance. Then, however, something changed. The focus of the conversation shifted from what was in front of them to what it all meant. Because this was more than a photo. It was a thread in a tapestry that had been woven by itself for a long time, before they realized it was a part of something bigger. Someone goes back and retraces actions they were unaware they were taking. The design then appears as if a curtain were being pulled back. One of them shakes their head and murmurs, "This isn't random." Now they realize that every moment before to this one wasn't just recorded. It was positioned. Every action, every appearance, and every second that was meticulously or negligently captured all contributed to something they had not yet realized. It was hard to ignore some of those moments that demanded attention. Others went past in silence, first going undetected. But now that I'm standing here and looking back, I can say with certainty that none of it was in vain. It wasn't all pointless. It was always progressing towards something bigger. Someone eventually exhales as if the truth had just fallen on their chest, saying, "You don't just exist. You make something durable." Some individuals come and go, leaving just a blur in their wake, their presence barely perceptible before it disappears. Not you, however. You leave a mark, a change, or an indisputable indication that you were present. Furthermore, it's not just about appearances. It has to do with their feelings, because the effect lasts long after the picture vanishes and the discussions stop. The weight of something unsaid pushing on the air causes the atmosphere to change as soon as you walk in. Even those who are unfamiliar with you are aware of you. That doesn't happen by accident. That is a constructed object. They'll keep this in mind. Someone whispers while maintaining eye contact with the screen. However, they are no longer focusing on a particular moment. The whole scene, the route that leads beyond it, and the road that brought them here are all visible to them. Since this is more than simply a post, it's more than simply another moment lost in the never-ending scroll. It is a fragment of an ongoing narrative. Not everything in history occurs at once. Until it reaches a tipping point, it travels in fragments, silent at first and invisible. And this? Another element is coming together with this, one another step toward the inevitable. A silence descends over the room as the knowledge weighs heavily. All of the conjecture, hypotheses, and never-ending analysis leads to the same conclusion. What comes next? Because this is no longer just a discussion. It's more than merely amusement or interest. Something has changed. A motion has been initiated. They must now make a decision on their course of action. This is because once you really see it, nothing will ever be the same. According to Proverbs 22, loving favor is more valuable than silver and gold, and a good name is more desirable than great riches. Some individuals go through life like a whisper, appearing one minute and disappearing the next. Only the smallest trace, hardly a ripple in the water, is left behind by them. Then there are others, however. Some people are unavoidable and remain in the room long after they have departed. They don't call for notice. They are not required to. The weight of their identity is sufficient. They were never intended to blend in with the background noise. They were never intended to be little, so they don't blend in with the surroundings. Something has been constructed here, whether intentionally or not. There's no denying it. Something humans can sense. Even those who aren't personally acquainted with you are aware of you. It's not a coincidence, it's not luck. That is the outcome of a force that was there, had an influence, and had been at work for a long time, before anybody understood they needed to pay attention. With their eyes focused on the present, someone murmurs, "They'll remember this." However, they're not just considering the present. They are seeing everything, even the foundation that was established before anybody ever realized it, and the steps that brought them here. Because this goes beyond what has been seen so far. It's about what's yet to happen. It takes time for history to unfold. Step by step, moment by moment, it advances in fragments until it is indisputable. And this is an additional advancement. One more shift. One another sign on a trail that should never have been concealed. Thus, certain names could become fading. Moments could be forgotten. Not this, however. Not you. According to Matthew 22:14, many are called, but few are chosen. There are times when a reaction is required. You can't leave them the same way. You don't have the luxury of being neutral with them. They tug on something buried deep within you, something that was put there long before you knew it was there, just waiting to be roused. One of those times is now. With the weight of the conversation bearing down on them, the room is suddenly silent. All of the conjecture, ideas, and never-ending analysis points to the same inevitable conclusion. This is more than simply a picture. It's more than that, a spark, a change, an unsettling vibration in the atmosphere. What comes next? Despite being quietly stated, the inquiry is delivered with a thunderclap. Because this is no longer simply idle chatter. It goes beyond simple amusement or interest. Something has been accomplished by this picture, this moment. They have been challenged, motivated, and troubled by it. They can feel it now as they gaze at the screen. The pull, the change, the moment that demands recognition. One individual wipes their face and lets out a quick breath. They whisper, almost to themselves, "You can't see something like this and remain the same." But nobody disputes it, and everyone hears it. In actuality, most individuals live their lives as spectators, observing from the sidelines and evaluating the actions of those who influence the world instead of taking initiative. The majority of individuals wait. They bide their time, wait for the proper sign, or wait for the appropriate chance. For a very long time they do not move. However, this compels them to think again. It compels them to ask themselves the crucial question, am I prepared to come forward? Its weight is almost too much, because they know the truth in their hearts. They are aware that individuals like him, those who move with assurance, who have an indisputable power, who change the atmosphere when they walk into a room, do not simply appear. They're constructed, molded, forged in the furnace of moment after moment, choice after decision, when they choose to take a risk rather than remain in the background. They must now determine if they are happy to watch from a distance as they sit in the silence of this revelation. Or will they allow themselves to be pushed towards something more by the weight, the wonder, the pain, and the restlessness? The quiet goes on and on. Nobody knows the solution. However, the change has already started, and after this, nothing will be the same. The quiet is electric, yet no one says anything. Although the response has not yet been given, the transformation has already started, and after this, nothing will be the same.